Hello and welcome to Maximum Disc, a show where I celebrate physical media and talk about films that I own on Blu Ray and 4K Blu Ray. I'm James Adamson. I'm a co-host on the Double Reel Film Podcast. If you like this chat about physical media, please do check out Double Reel. It's a monthly magazine podcast by people who love movies as much as you do. And we think if you tune into any episode, you'll come away with a bunch of great recommendations of things to watch instead of just doing whatever the algorithm tells you. That's the sales pitch for the podcast. Now we're talking about physical media. Why does it matter? Well, short version, if you care about a film, you need to own it. The streamers don't necessarily make everything available. You'd be surprised how many things just aren't there when you're looking for something specific. Is it going to be the director's cut special edition that makes the film work properly? Unlikely, if that matters. And most importantly, it's not going to look and sound its best on a compressed internet file streaming to your TV or your phone or whatever, instead of on a disc on your shelf in its original, quality. So hopefully you're a convert to that already. That's why you clicked on the link. Every episode I talk about one film I own. It's obviously you want to know what it sounds like, what it looks like. Is it a good transfer? Does it, represent the original film well? I talk about that. I don't get into like super technical detail. I don't, pause and analyze whether the black is at this level or that level. But I do try and give you a good view of what it looks and sounds like. I talk about my relationship with the film, why it matters to me. And sort of rounding it up at the end, I will talk about whether I think it's an essential purchase, which is just my opinion, but hopefully it'll make your own mind up and inspire you to keep adding to your own physical media collection. So today we're talking about Alfred Hitchcock's Vertigo on 4K Blu Ray. This is a big one. So as I said, this is a Hitchcock film. Came out in 1958. This is one of his peak periods, that especially the mid to late 1950s, where he was absolutely on top of the world. Alfred Hitchcock, of course, one of the absolute masters of cinema, a complete pioneer, transformed British cinema in the 20s and then the 30s, went to Hollywood and became this just leading light of genre cinema, entertainment cinema, but always done with great craftsmanship. He was legendary for psychological thrillers, suspense, almost, reinvented the slasher movie with Psycho. Kind of a name that needs no introduction, but this is one of his most perverse and deep psychological films from that peak period. Can't really not mention the fact that there were allegations of misconduct by Hitchcock over the years. I'm not sure the way he treated his actors, especially women, would be acceptable today. It's something that you need to wrestle with. Can you separate the artist from the art? But I think it's worth watching some of these great films of his, and ironically, some of the actresses who worked in his films did their best work. So that's why we're talking about that. But it wouldn't be right not to mention the fact that his legacy is complicated. The screenplay is by Alec Koppel and Samuel Taylor, very much acting under Hitchcock's direction. He rarely wrote scripts other than in the early part of his career, but he was the driving force of the story whenever he made a film. In this case, he optioned a French novel, D'Entre les Morts, by Pierre Boileau and Thomas Narcejac. He'd wanted to option their previous novel, but missed out. That became Clouzot's classic French thriller, Les Diaboliques, which is seen by many as a sort of the French Hitchcock. He didn't want to miss out this time. He got hold of this novel and in his own sort of special way turned it into exactly the film he wanted to make. The main members of the cast in two of their most iconic roles are James Stewart and Kim Novak. Jimmy Stewart, obviously famous for a range of things. Kim Novak, especially famous for this. Barbara Bel Geddes, most famous for her part in the TV show Dallas, plays a key supporting role. The other actors I only really know from this film, names like Tom Helmore, Henry Jones, Raymond Bailey, Ellen Corby, and Constantine Shane. But it's the leads who make this film. The cinematography is by Robert Burks, a regular collaborator with Hitchcock through the 1950s and 60s. He was the director of photography on the majority of his films in that period, from Strangers on a Train in the early 50s through to Marnie in the mid-60s. The sound team was numerous, as you'd expect. Complex sound design to this film, but it was supervised by George Dutton, who was named in awards nominations. As well as the sound, the score is absolutely vital. It's by the legendary Bernard Herrmann. He's a very important collaborator with Hitchcock. Did a number of his most famous scores. I mean, Psycho especially. Had an absolutely legendary career. For example, Scorsese was a huge fan and reused his score for his version of Cape Fear. And he got Herrmann to do Taxi Driver, which was the last film he composed before his death in 1975. Absolutely in a class of his own when it comes to using the score to, control the mood of the audience, which Hitchcock made great use of in this film. So in terms of awards and nominations, the initial response to this film was mixed, critically and commercially. It's not an easy film, and it certainly pushed the standards and censorship of the day. So just the 2 Oscar nominations for art direction, set decoration and sound, but no wins. A Directors Guild of America nomination for Hitchcock, 1 or 2 nominations at some smaller European festivals like San Sebastian, and that's it. Its reputation as one of the greatest films of all time took a while to develop, let's say that. So a quick summary of what the film is about. James Stewart plays he was 50 when he made the film, but let's say he's a 40s, approaching middle age policeman who discovers at the worst possible time that he suffers from a fear of heights, which gives him vertigo, dizziness. He gets injured, somebody dies. He has to be, leave the force on disability, basically. While he's recuperating, an old friend gets in touch, someone he's not seen in years, and says he needs someone to be essentially a private investigator and follow his wife, because he's worried that she's in the grip of some sort of mental health crisis, delusions, obsession with some past life or past history that's making her act in a way that might need her to be committed to an institution. Jimmy Stewart meets her. It's Kim Novak, a young, beautiful woman who absolutely bewitches him. He follows her. He wants to protect her. She starts acting very strangely, throws herself into the bay. Tragedy strikes, and without wanting to get into too many spoilers, Jimmy Stewart lives out his obsession with Kim Novak's character, and all sorts of terrible secrets are revealed about the past as he unveils them. It's a study in obsession, grief, people being gripped by what we call mental health issues now, but back then it was acrophobia, trauma, all of these things. Definitely about the main character's obsession with a blonde woman, and I think by extension of Hitchcock's obsession with that kind of woman. My background with the film is that when I was younger, my parents recognised the fact that I was a big fan of movies, like they were. My mum decided it was time to sit me down and get me watching some Alfred Hitchcock films. Let's see what you think of some great films by the masters. And we sat through a double bill of Rear Window and Vertigo. Now, Rear Window is by far my mum's favourite Hitchcock film. She's a people watcher. That film's a great study in, a man looking out the window and seeing something he shouldn't. And she said, Vertigo's good. I'm not as keen on it. So I watched that with her as well. And initially really didn't like it. I thought Rear Window, that works for me straight off. Jimmy Stewart as that guy, Grace Kelly, Raymond Burr, all of that terrific stuff. Vertigo, I found something about it a bit off-putting, if I'm honest. But I couldn't stop thinking about it. The film really got under my skin. So I went back to it and was completely hypnotised, captivated, fully sold on it. I bought into its disorienting study and obsession, almost woozy, feverish mood. It's gripping, even though it maintains a deliberate pace. It's the darkest role, or one of them, that Jimmy Stewart ever did, as an example of the fact that when he came back from the war, he wasn't that light-leading man that he was anymore. He'd seen things, and that came out in the films that he did very often. And over a number of rewatches, I got completely sort of bought into this film, and now I think it's the best Hitchcock film and one of my top 10 films of all time. It's a massive influence on all sorts of future directors, from Brian De Palma to Park Chan-wook and everyone in between. It is iconic in so many ways, visually, stylistically, mood, everything else. I think it's the best film of Hitchcock's peak period, easily, and that's my favourite Hitchcock period. There are those who sort of bat for his 40s output, but it's that late 50s for me, and definitely Vertigo. It's perhaps the most frank examination Hitchcock ever did of his own tendencies. There are stories now about his obsession with Tippi Hedren, some sort of strange relationship with his mother, with, dead women, with blonde women, with controlling women. You can't really talk about that part of what's alleged about his real life when you're talking about Vertigo, which seems to be some kind of almost a confessional. It's certainly an examination, like I said. And it really goes into the idea of a character being, just obsessed and unable to let go of things. And Kim Novak plays a character who's seemingly obsessed and able to let go of various things as well. And that collision of, almost of people's psychosis or fetishes and obsessions, it's just an incredible film, and so much under the surface because of the way censorship couldn't let you say too many things overtly, but there's certainly a lot going on there. Certainly a lot of people letting their, obsessions and tendencies really hang out. All sorts of, facts about this film. It's where the dolly zoom was invented. If you don't know what that is, it's made famous in Jaws, the scene where Roy Scheider's sitting on the deck chair and a shark attack happens in front of him and there's that zoom. It's when the camera moves away from the subject while zooming in, creating a disorienting effect. They used it in this to simulate the effect of Jimmy Stewart's dizziness and vertigo whenever he's up heights. And the fact that he's up heights obviously has a significant role to play in the film. It's believed to be one of the first ever films to use computer animation for the psychedelic opening title sequence, which used an early computer to create these sort of geometric shapes. Other than that, there's various great trivia about this film if you want to read up on it. This weird winding road in San Francisco in which Stewart's apartment is located. There's some really interesting location shooting, which was relatively novel in the 50s. It's this long, winding road. There seems to be no straight parts to it, and his apartment's on that road. The fact that in the movie, Jimmy Stewart only ever drives downhill, not up. It's one of those things that's, you don't need to know that, but that's why this film has this hypnotic sort of, it gets into your brain, As always, the censors were watching Hitchcock very closely because they knew what he was like, and they were, watching him like a hawk, and no underwear was allowed to be shown in key scenes where Kim Novak's in bed, and it's still the usual stuff that they were really prissy about back then. And Hitchcock has his usual cameo early on in the shipyard. But what this really is about is the way this film is just this gripping study in psychological. It's one of the first erotic thrillers, I would say, at a time when you weren't supposed to be that erotic. So how he managed it is just an exercise in Hitchcock's greatness at just staying only just on the right side of the line as far as the censors were concerned. So let's talk about the disc. This is a 2020 release in 4K. They did a full 4K restoration of the original negatives and also a big cleanup of the sound, which required them to source some missing footage. They used HDR10 color grading to get it absolutely right because it's got that unique 50s color look, which you'll know what I mean when you watch any 1950s film. It's kind of real but not real. I couldn't find a UK release of this at any kind of reasonable price, so I went looking around the different sort of Amazons that you can get, and Germany was doing this at a reasonable price. I checked carefully, and it's the full 4K film, and I was prepared to accept that the packaging wouldn't be in the English language. On the disc itself, you can get English audio and subtitles. It's a 2-disc edition. The second disc is a Blu Ray. Obviously, the first disc is the film in 4K. The second disc is a Blu Ray and it has various special features, which include some making of documentaries and featurettes of the film itself and the restoration. Part of a series of interviews of Hitchcock by Francois Truffaut. There's a very famous series of interviews that he did. There's a theatrical trailer, a stills gallery, a commentary featuring William Friedkin, and a reversible cover. So it's not a steelbook or collector's edition, but it's a nice disc. It's got a decent amount of special features if that's your thing. So let's talk about the video. It was shot in VistaVision, which was a very popular sort of high-end way to make films in the 1950s. You got the best 35mm stock that you could, and you fed it into the camera sideways, and you got a really widescreen shot, which was great for landscapes, but also close-up detail on the people in the movie. It was popular in the 50s with films like John Ford's The Searchers and other Hitchcock films like To Catch a Thief and North by Northwest. It really was probably the plushest format that in general use back then. It's been superseded by other formats like 70mm for the really, really high-end stuff like David Lean films, and Panavision, which is 35mm blown up to 70, which is so much easier to use. There wasn't really a big sort of Hollywood release after the early 60s of VistaVision, but it's had a mini revival with The Brutalist and One Battle After Another. Now, why have I gone on about VistaVision for so long? Well, if you watch The Brutalist and One Battle After Another, you'll see why. It's an absolutely glorious film format, and it makes this film look absolutely spectacular, and the 4K restoration of the negative has really brought everything out. I mean, I remember seeing this recorded off the TV and on DVD, and it looks great. I think that rich colour that you used to get in 1950s colour films always came across well. But now it's just incredible. San Francisco looks as good as it's ever looked. You get real great shots of the Golden Gate Bridge and the bay. The locations are incredibly vivid. Hitchcock went out on location, wanted it to look right. Even the back projection in the cars is almost lifelike, which is rare for 50s films. But there's something about seeing Jimmy Stewart walking around, and someone who's always been a film star in the old days and always seemed a little bit, black and white. It's a Wonderful Life, Harvey. And seeing him so vividly lifelike that he felt you could reach out and touch him, it's really powerful. It really does the job. In interiors, there's incredible use of colour by Hitchcock and his team, especially use of red and green. There's a scene in the restaurant where red is so richly sort of all over the decoration of the restaurant, and Kim Novak's wearing green, and it's so, nothing has better expressed without a word being uttered of a man being absolutely captivated by a woman just by seeing her in that setting. Everything is just so good. Skin tone, close-ups, wide shots, everything is absolutely top-notch here. This was Hitchcock saying, as well as the film being, as it would turn out, a classic, it's been made to the absolute highest standard with all his best craftspeople, and incredible quality every single step of the way. And in that 4K, iconic shots like the woozy, soft focus shot of Kim Novak emerging from a doorway after her transformation into a new outfit never looked better. Just really, really mind-blowing. This is absolutely superb. People often refer to things like being reference quality Blu-rays. That's hard to say this is, because when you're talking about 4K Blu-ray of a more modern film with like the lighting and film stock that you used to, you see Blade Runner, you see Apocalypse Now. This is very 50s and is very sort of richly coloured, but it's close to the best you'll get on video on a 4K Blu-ray. I'm going on because it really matters. It's really incredible. In terms of the sound, this is in DTSX, which is their competitor to Atmos. The original sound was mono, and as I said, it needed to be restored for this release. DTSX is really good. It's up there with Atmos in terms of quality, I think, although the film doesn't make use of that facility very often. The opening titles and some moments in Bernard Herrmann's score, really powerful, really use the bass, really immersive. A lot of the time, though, the sound is just a bit more front-loaded, straightforward. It's not a sound-heavy film. It's not helicopters and explosions or that sort of thing. It's more visual than sonic in its power, but that score sounds absolutely incredible. As you listen, it's lovely and clear, very good sound. I'd like to see what else is out there in DTSX and in a film that would put it more fully through its paces. I think they're generally just saying when they're restoring this, look, the vision needs to be to the best. Let's give it the best possible sound we can give it. So they use that more than just a 5.1, more than just a good stereo. They wanted to give it the absolute full work. So the sound is absolutely top notch. Overall, look, just go online, read about Vertigo. Everyone will tell you, what a great film it is. It really is an absolutely stunning, incredible film. It took me a little while to tune into it, so possibly not everyone's going to like it the first time, but you have to give it another go. You have to give its themes and its empower a chance to work on you, because when it does, you will never, ever, ever forget this film. It'd be impossible to get it out of your head. Kim Novak is iconic. Jimmy Stewart is iconic. San Francisco is iconic. And Hitchcock just, whatever you think of him personally, he really does examine himself in a way that he didn't always do in films, and examine his characters. He always puts characters under the microscope in his psychological thrillers, but this is a really personal, powerful, incredible piece of work. And, an interesting example of how you can have the most erotic of erotic thrillers where people hardly even get close to naked. So absolutely love this film. Incredible, and a really good disc to watch it on. Is it an essential purchase? Well, absolutely. Yes. It is so essential. I said, it's just my opinion. It's more than my opinion on this one. This is an absolutely essential film. Do you want films that look good? Tick the box. It looks absolutely incredible. It will show off your cinema system. Do you want to watch great films? Watch this film. I genuinely think it's one of the top 10 films of all time, and therefore everyone should own it. I mean, it'll be on screen somewhere. They're always showing Hitchcock films, but this is just, if you want to own any films, you should own this one. And anything else I say now would just be saying the same thing in a different way. Yes, it's an essential purchase. So that's Vertigo. I hope you enjoyed me reviewing it. I certainly enjoyed talking to you about it. There are other episodes of various films that I own up here on the YouTube channel. Once again, if you enjoyed the show, please do check out Double Reel. Ways to find the podcast and our socials will be up on the screen in a moment. In any event, I hope to see you very soon for more physical media chat right here on Maximum Disc. The Maximum Disc YouTube channel is brought to you by Double Reel, the monthly magazine podcast for the discerning film nerd. If you like our celebration of physical media, please check out the podcast for more chat about the films we love and hate.